Hello and welcome to NewFilmmakers Los Angeles in partnership with Movie Maker magazine. My name is Danny DeLillo and we're here at the South Park Center and I'm here with Jhanvi with her movie Spinsterhood. Let's take a look at the clip.
Why don't you want to get married? Are you seeing someone?
I feel like we've had this conversation so many times. I'm not sure why, Mom.
Thank you so much for being here and congratulations on your film.
Thank you.
We loved it, but for those that haven't seen it, tell us a brief synopsis.
So Spinsterhood is the story of Sarah Chatterjee, who's 29 and trying to make it in Hollywood, and she's single, which is her parents' biggest nightmare. And so they're trying to set her up with guys and trying to get her married and have a settled life versus living paycheck to paycheck. And they don't really know that she's actually in a relationship with her best friend, Spencer, who's also a woman. And we sort of meet them in the film when they're at the tipping point of deciding whether or not they need to reveal to her parents that they're dating.
It's such a great film, and you just had a wonderful cast, like
Yes.
really, really, really. I want to get into how great they were, but where did the inspiration come for you in creating this particular project?
For sure. So Sarah's really like a combination of both me and my co-writer, Stephen Crawford. Stephen is from Australia. He is queer, and he never really came out to his family. He grew up in Alice Springs, which is like the middle of Australia, not necessarily the coast. And he grew up on a farm, and he didn't necessarily have the tools to communicate that. And then I was the person whose parents were like, they still are. They're still egging me on to get married. And so, you know, we both initially started writing just, you know, because we wanted to do something creative outside our day jobs. And then it morphed into sort of the movie.
I love it, and from the very first moment, this captivating dating scene that was, you just felt for her, because it's just so awkward and like, oh my God, like, you know, and sadly, very typical of the kind of dating world in LA as well.
Yeah.
It was so great, and I just loved just the banter between each other. It was great. As I say, you had a great cast. How was the casting process for you?
The casting process was very interesting because it was very non-traditional. So I saw the woman that plays Sarah, Poonam, I saw her in a play. And I did not go there with the intention to cast. I just went there with a friend. I was invited to go. I had so much fun, and I watched her perform 10 feet away from me live, and I was like, this is it, she's the girl. The mom I met at a reading. Our script was selected to be part of the New Normal reading series in Hollywood. So that's where I met Nandini, who was there yesterday.
Yeah, wonderful.
And then the others, it was all interesting. It was all friends. The sister was a friend of mine who had just moved to LA, and we met each other through these South Asian women in entertainment networking groups. And the dad was a recommendation by the mom. And then Spencer was truly the traditional casting process. So I couldn't find anyone for her from whoever I knew and posting around. And so I reached out to a casting associate called Cherie Mezek, who's a friend of mine. And she put it out. We got a ton of tapes, but I wasn't necessarily still sure of who to go with. And then she sent me Dia's reel, and Dia has a ton of acting experience, and so I think it was just very natural. She was very much the character that I was looking for.
Yeah.
So it was like, it was piecemeal, but it all kind of came together.
Yeah, no, it really did, and again, I think it just flowed on screen as well. How are you as a director? Because like obviously there's a lot of quick wit in there. There's a lot of like you have to really get those kind of like comedic moments and also the very serious moments. Do you kind of very hands-on, or do you kind of play? I mean, you also got this amazing family as well that feel like a real family. How do you work as a director with all of that?
Yeah. So I think a lot of that was in the cinematography of the film. I think the DP really did a great job of sort of walking me through his process, and then I was very focused on story. I'm not much for, I want a wide here and I want a close up here. I will always focus on what is this moment about and how can we use the camera just to kind of capture that beat. So I was just very lucky that my DP has done a ton of Comedy Central spots, and so he really knows how to do the fast-paced stuff. I would not recommend anyone ever write a dinner scene in a very tight schedule because it was a lot of coverage, you know, so and a lot of it actually came through in the edit because the scenes were actually a lot longer. So the movie's only like 10 minutes, but the script was roughly 12 pages. So we cut down a lot too, and I think a lot of that was kind of me really understanding my process through the edit, and now next time knowing, okay, well, I'm not really going to use this. I'm just going to cut it, you know, in the table read.
Yeah.
Like I could have done that, but I feel like I erred on the side of caution and was like, I'm going to shoot everything and then cut it. But I think, you know, this was a short film, but when you're doing features, I think you have to be much more aware of the kind of time you're using to film things. Yeah. So this process really informed what I will do moving forward. But I would say, like, I try to let people do what they do. You know, I don't get in too much unless you're like way off track, because, you know, like you said, it really flows, and I think that came from the fact that the cast was very intuitive. Yeah. You know, and if they didn't feel aligned, they would make a suggestion. A lot of these were also like them saying, hey, what if I tried this? And I was like, let's go for it. Let's do it. Or the scene between Mom and Sarah when they're sort of having an honest conversation.
I love that scene,
Yeah, that was one of my favorite scenes, and I remember that I actually went against my initial instinct of, you know, I wanted it to be a little bit lighthearted at the end, but then I was like, no, this sort of needs to lead us into the last scene. So I kind of was like, hey, what if we tried it like this? And I think that kind of changed the whole scene. Yeah. So I would say I try to stay hands off for the most part, but it also completely depends on the film. I think this was a very naturalistic film, so I think there wasn't a lot for me to kind of, you know, really dig in because the actors were just so good at what they were doing.
I mean, it's amazing in 10 minutes what you can feel from the, you know, the comedic moments to the lovely family moments, the very, you know, sentimental moments between mother and daughter, and then obviously to the finale of just, you know, finding out and just kind of the relationship and how that's going to move forward. What was the biggest challenge for you?
This was my first time directing.
What? Yes. I don't believe you. Wow.
So I think the biggest challenge for me was sort of the race against time on set.
Yeah, it goes quick, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I mean, you get there and you're like, oh, we got 12 hours, and then before you know it, you're through half the day. So I think for me, the hardest scene was the lunch scene. We took about 8 hours to do that scene, and it was very tricky to keep hearing the same lines and then also being like, what do I need to do to actually make this take something I will use? Yeah. You know, because literally I was focused on each actor, and then we would run through the whole scene, and then I had to know for that specific actor what note to give, and also like kind of, you know, blur out the noise a little bit and really just focus in on one person and what's that person feeling in that moment. So I think when you have multiple people in one scene, I think that's very, very difficult. It's not something you need to practice, you know?
Well, as you know, the first time directing, which I still can't believe because it was amazing. It was so amazing. You wouldn't think it was your first time. What was it like? What was it like to have your film, you know, on a big screen? You know, obviously with us at NewFilmmakers.
Yeah.
What was that? What's that experience like to sort of be like out there for an audience to see?
Yeah, it's always a little surreal. You know, I think every filmmaker starts out being like just wanting to make something that means something to them, and then, you know, when you make it to that level where you're showing it to an audience and people are connecting with it, I think that's truly like, it's terrifying when you walk in because you're like, I don't really know how these people are gonna react, but and then when people laugh or react, or even if they don't like what's happening, if that's the intention, then you're like, okay, my job is done. Like I connected with the people that are watching. So I think it's really like, I feel really blessed that I've been able to take it to the big screen, especially since it's my first time directing. And hopefully I can just keep doing it again and again.
What is next for you?
What is next for me? So right now I am developing a couple of projects, but as far as directing goes, I'm gonna shoot principal photography on a documentary in the fall.
Oh, great.
And then I just wrote another short film, actually, and I think I made it really hard on myself because it's all teenagers, it's all set in school, and the bulk of the film happens on a school bus.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, I'm very daunted at the idea of trying to shoot it, but I definitely want to try to find a way to do it because I think working with children would be a very interesting experience.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the next short film I want to direct, and then I have a couple of pilots. I definitely have a pilot for Spinsterhood. That's that's actually where it started. We wrote the pilot, and then my writer and I both went to AFI, and that's kind of the place where we both fell in love with just making stuff.
Yeah.
And making shorts is, a lot more quick and financially feasible, and so that's why we made the short, and then actually the short really helped inform the pilot.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So you kind of flip and flop a little bit.
Yeah, you learn a lot from both of those.
Yeah.
So obviously, you've obviously had your first time now directing, which is done, and now obviously moving forward. What I love is that even for the process, you're like, yeah, maybe I'll change this, maybe I'll try this next time. What have you learned maybe from AFI, maybe from this directing Spinsterhood? What have you learned, a piece of advice that you go by for you as a filmmaker, that you can give any advice to anybody else out there?
I don't know if I'm qualified for that, but if I had to tell somebody that was trying to do their first film, I would say don't be afraid to say that you don't know something to your closest collaborators. Like, I think, especially like your DP and production designer and like those people are the people that you want to be able to lean on.
Yeah.
And so I think when we shot, I'm going to keep going back to that dinner lunch scene.
Yeah.
So when we shot that lunch scene, we had to do a series of takes, and again, I haven't done a lot of this, so for me some of the language was very foreign. And I was like, can you explain that to me like I'm a 5-year-old? I literally told my DP that, and he was like, okay. And then later on he came up to me and he was like, I really appreciated that you did that, because a lot of directors will just be like, sure, and then they don't necessarily know the intent of what is going on. So I think it just helps you to like really know everything. And so if someone says that, let's try this, and you don't really know what they're saying, you should ask them what they mean, because a lot of people will just get scared that as a director you should know everything, which is true. You should know your story, but it's okay to not know something technical.
I think that's such an important thing, because I think everyone just sort of falls into this world and thinks that they have to know on their first day or what's going on or how to do things or whenever. Even just as you go along, you're always consistently learning, and I think everyone's too afraid to do that, myself included sometimes, and so, but we're all just trying to do it, we're trying to make it happen.
That's why you have to choose good collaborators.
Good collaborators is very important. But no, listen, thank you for your film. I can't wait to see much more of your work.
Thank you.
And we loved it. So Spinsterhood, everyone. Jhanvi.
Thank you.